Hi, welcome to another tutorial on Microsoft Excel. Today we are going to talk about functions with if. Okay, now in Excel, the if statement allows you to logically compare a value and what you expect by testing for a condition and returning a result if the condition is true or false. So today we are going to dive into everything that has to do with if statements, okay? Everything that has to do with if statements. So first, we are going to start with sum if, okay? Sum if. What is sum if? Now, this function is used to get the sum of the value in a range that meets a particular condition, okay? So, as you can see from my interface, I'm going to start with my sheet 1, which talks about sum if. Now, let's get down to it. So now, I have in my column ID, I have name, I have mark, and I have grade. So now, let's get the sum of whose name ends with the character MI. Okay, and in my name, you can see that we have Temi, we have Semi, we have Wami, and so on and so forth. So the assignment now is to get the sum of whose name ends with the character MI. So now let's get down to it. So to do that, let's start. So in Excel, to start any formula, you have to use your equals to. So is equals to sum if. Okay, so this is it. You double click on it. Now, in bracket is already there. Now, our B2, okay, that's our range, column B9. Okay, that's the range for the name. Then you give it a comma. Then you give it a double quotes. Okay, now we can put our criteria in there. So, our criteria is first give it an asterisk, and now you give it MI as the criteria, then you close the double quotes, okay? Now you give it a comma, and you open another C2, okay? And a column and C9, okay? So which means our B2 to B9 is the range for the name, and our MI is the criteria for the character. So our C2 to C9 is the range for the mark. Okay, now you close the brackets, and remember, like I said, the assignment is to get the sum of whose name ends with the character MI. Okay, so now we have the syntax and the argument inserted into it. So now let's execute it. Perfect. So we have 90. Okay, let's take a look at it. We are talking about MI, so we have MI, the character that ends with MI. I think we have 3. We have Temi, we have Semi, and we have Wami. Okay, that's great. So which means 30 plus 39 plus 21 give us 90. That's correct. So this is how sum if works, okay? Okay, now we are talking about sum ifs. Now, what do we use it for, and what is it? Okay, this is used to meet the sum of value in a range that meets multiple conditions. Okay, so in this function, we can use a wildcard character. And what are wildcard character? They are like asterisk and so on and so forth. So we are going to use it here too. So now let's look at the assignment. The assignment here is to sum the name that ends with the character MI and the grade with B. Okay, so now we have the name like Temi, it ends with MI. We have Semi, it ends with MI. We have Wami, it ends with MI. Now, the condition now is with the grade, okay, of B. Now we have our B, okay, which is D3. We also have D4. So which means we are summing the value of the name that ends with MI with the grade that is B. So which means Semi end with MI with the grade of B, Wami MI with the grade of B. So these are the two values we are summing together. Okay, now let's get to work. Is equals to Sumifs. Okay, we open a bracket and then we give it our C2 in column C9. So that's the range for the mark. So we give it a comma, then B2 in column B9. So that's the range for our name. Now we need to give it a criteria, okay? Also a wildcard, okay? Our criteria is MI, so that's the character that ends the word. So we give it a double quote, okay? We give it asterisk, which is our wildcard, and MI, okay? Then we close the quote. Now we give it a comma. Now D2 in column D9. So this is the range for our grade. Now we give it a comma and a double quote. Now we give it a criteria, which is B, and also we close the double quote and close the bracket. Okay, so in summary, what this means is that we are summing the name that ends with the character MI and the grade with B. So let's execute it. Perfect. So let's look at it. Okay, this is it. This is it. We have semi and wami end with MI with the grade of BB. So that's it. Let's talk about Countif. This function counts the number of cells in a range that meet a particular condition. Okay, so now we have ID as our column, we have 2, 3, 4, we have name, CBAA, we have mark, 19, 24, and so on. We have grade, CB, and so on. So now we want to count the value of the mark that is greater than 20. Okay, so now let's do that. Is equals to Countif, okay, and C2 column C9, okay, we give it a comma and we give it a double quote and greater than 20. Then we close the double quotes and we close the bracket. Now, remember, our assignment is to count the value of the mark that is greater than 20. So, using our Countif, we've already specified the range we are working on, which is mark, and the condition, which is greater than 20. So now let's execute it. Now we have 5. Okay, we have 5, which means we have 5 mark that is greater than 20. Okay, we have 25, number 1, we have 24, okay, number 2, and number 3, we have 25 again, we have 24, and we have 21. So what this does is that it counts the value that is greater pending on the condition given. So the condition is count the mark that is greater than 20. So we use Countif to do what? To count the function of a cell in a range. And the range we have here is our C2, okay, which is the mark. So that is it. Let's talk about Countifs, okay? Countifs. Now, Countif is a function that counts the number of cells in a range that meets multiple conditions, okay? Now we have here our ID numbers, our names, our mark, and grade. So now the assignment here is to count the value of grade that has B and also an ID number of 1, okay? So let's do it. So is equals to Countifs, Okay, and then we have our D2 in column, and we have our D9, then we give it a comma. So this is the range for our grade. Now, the criteria is B, okay? Now we give it a double quote, B and a double quote, and we give it a comma. Now let's move to the second range, which is A2 in column, A9, which is the range for the ID, okay? And what is the criteria? The criteria is 1, so we give it a double quote, 1, and a double quote, then we close the bracket. So in summary, what this does is that it counts the value, okay, of grade that has B with the ID number of 1. Okay, so now let's execute it. Perfect. So we have 2. Okay, now let's take a look at it. We are looking for the grade B and ID number 1. Okay, so we have this. Perfect. That's number 1. What else again? We have this also. Perfect. That's number 2. So that's right. So we have 2. Okay, so that's it. Let's talk about Averageif. Okay, now this function finds the average of cell in a range that meets a particular condition. When we are talking about average, we are talking about arithmetic mean. Okay, average, we are referring to arithmetic mean. Okay, so right now we are talking about a function that finds the average of a cell in a range that meets a particular condition. Looking at my interface, we have our ID numbers, we have our name, we have our mark, and we have our grade. And below B10, we have a name with a tag AA. Now, let's look at the assignment here. Now, the task here is to find the average mark, okay, whose name is AA. So, which means we are going to focus on 2 ranges. We are going to focus on range of name and range of mark, okay, to achieve the result of our name. Okay, so right now, the assignment, like I said, is to find the average of a mark whose name is AA. Okay, so now let's do it. So that's going to be is equals to Averageif. Okay, and then we have our B2 in column and we have our B9. Okay, we give it a comma. Okay, and what is the criteria? The criteria is our C10. Okay, the criteria is our C10. So that's going to be C10. Okay, we give it a comma. And then the next range is our C2 in column and C9. Okay, then we close the bracket. So in summary, what this is going to do is going to get us the average of our mark, which is the column, okay, and scan through the name and give us the results. Okay, in summary, these 2 ranges work together to give us the results. Okay, so let's execute it. Perfect. So we have 26. Okay, so this is how it works. Let's talk about Averageifs. Okay, Averageifs. Okay, Averageifs. Okay, now this function finds the average, like I said, is an arithmetic mean of cell in a range that meets multiple conditions. So this meets multiple conditions. Okay, as usual, we have my columns of ID, names, mark, and grade. And then below it, we have our name, which is AA, and our grade, which is B. So the task is to get the result of what? Now, let's get the question. Now, we are to find the average of mark, okay, whose name is AA and grade with B. We are going to work on the name of AA and the grade of B. Okay, so this function, like I said, it works with a range of multiple conditions. Now we have 2 conditions. The first condition is to find the name AA and the mark with B. Okay, so now let's do it. So we come over here. Now is equals to Averageifs. Okay, this is it. And what else? So we C2 in column and C9. Okay, that's our range for the name. And then what else again? Our B2 in column and our B9. Okay, we give it a comma. And what is the criteria is C10. Okay, that's C10. Okay, and we give it a comma. Okay, now the next range is our D2 in column and our D9, okay, which is the range for our grade. And what is the criteria? The criteria is our C11, okay, and we close the bracket. So in summary, what this does, it extracts, okay, the mark whose name is AA and the grade is B and give us the results, okay? Now let's execute it. Perfect. So we have 24. Now let's look at it. AA, okay, we have this, okay, and we have another AA, okay, which is this, 24. So the average, perfect. So this is how it works. Let's talk about Maxifs. Maxifs, okay, maximum ifs. Okay, this function returns the maximum number from a range of cells that meet multiple conditions. But in this situation, we have two ways of going about this. We are going to work on a single criteria and also work on a double criteria. Okay, so first let's work on a single criteria. So right now we have our informations here. Now the question is, find the maximum mark whose name is CB. Okay, so we are dealing with one criteria. So we are told to find the maximum mark which name is CB. So we are focusing on the range called name, okay, and also on the mark itself. So now let's work on this. So remember, like I said, what maximum does, it returns the maximum number of a range of cells. So we are working on a single criteria which focus more on our C2 to C9, okay? C2 to C9, that's the mark of the range. And then we also focus on our B2 to B9, which is this, which is the range for the name. And then we have a criteria, which is what? Which is A11, okay? Which is A11. This is it. That's our CB. Okay, now let's do it. So is equals to Maxifs, okay? And then we have our C2 in column C9, okay? Now we give it a comma, and then we have our B2 in column and our B9, okay? That's the range for our name, okay? And then we give it a comma, and the criteria is A11, and then what do? We close the bracket, okay? So the criteria is A11, so this is the criteria we are looking for, so execute. So we have 25. Yes, 25, that's right. Because from the question, we are finding the maximum mark whose name is CB. Now let's look at it. We have the first CB here, and the mark is what? 20, okay? We have 2 CB in this sheet. Now the second CB is what? 25. So the maximum from this 2 CB from the name column is 25. So this is how it works. Let's talk about if function. Now, it is one of the most popular and most used functions in Excel. It allows users to test logical conditions and comparison between values, and it returns value if a condition is true and another value is false. Okay. Right now, I have my details, my ID, my name, and my mark. Let's get down to it. Now, is equals to if, in bracket, C2 is greater than equals to 25. Now we give it a comma, we open a double quote. Now we give it what? Pass. And we close the double quote and we give it a comma. Else, what should happen? It should be fail. Then we close the double quote and the bracket. So now, what this means, we are writing a condition for our if function that what we have in our column called mark, any number that is greater than 25 should be given pass, below should be given fail. Okay, now let's execute it. Okay, we have that here. Now let's bring it down. Okay, let's cross-check and see if this really applies to it, because any number above 25 should be pass, else should be fail. Now we have 28 pass, 23 is 25, that's the condition, that's fail. 32 is above 25, that's pass. 29, that's pass. So this is it. So what if condition does, like I said, what it does is that it allows user to test logical condition and comparison, and that's exactly what we did. Okay, we compare C5 greater than equals to 25, or else make it fail. Okay, so it's used mostly in getting a logical calculation of values that you have. So this is how it works. Please kindly subscribe, like, and share for more videos. Thank you.